There we go.
Robin.
Laurel, I'm so excited to be here.
I've been looking forward to this. You know, I just want to introduce to our Facebook friends and also our YouTubers that Robin Patchen, as well as being a dear friend, is also a fabulous multi-published novelist. And we met, I was trying to think, Robin, when we met. I don't remember actually. It's been a while.
It's been a long time. Yeah. I think I remember you from the first time from Mount Hermon, which was like 6 years ago today, this week.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. We flew home together, or
We had lunch, remember?
we had lunch.
Lunch.
Oh, I do remember, Robin. And that was when I was just starting fiction. And I remember you said, "So what's your story about?" And you know, I I was such a new novelist, and I told you my idea, and you were like, "That's great." I was like, "What? Are you sure?"
And that's why it's a book now.
Uh, well, you were such a big part of that process, and so I just wanted Robin to come on board because, you know, often I think that God puts people on our path that if we really recognize them, that it's not about really. I think it has to do with honoring people God puts around you because uh, Robin and I had opportunities to meet after that. We met at Oklahoma City Christian fiction writers. We do all kinds of writing things. She's taught for WriterCon, and really, Robin, you're a fabulous teacher also.
I love
So you have a great grasp on the craft, and because Robin and I have had years together. I just wanted to save her for the very end of our Getting Unstuck series and talk about all the ways that, I mean, really, River's Call, my first novel, was truly stashed in a drawer for, too many months to mention for a variety of reasons. So eventually, I found the right writers community and it got help and it moved forward and all of that. So I just want everyone just to know, first of all, that you know what you're talking about and also to get some really practical tips, because you are also a novelist, Robin. Tell us, I mean, has there ever been a time that you've been stuck in your writing process?
Oh, absolutely. I have lived it stuck for a while. And, um, I have the one that comes to mind, the book that comes to mind is a book that the Lord really put on my heart, basically downloaded into my brain during a sermon that I was totally not listening to at church one day.
Yeah.
And, so to me, I thought that should be the easiest book to write because the Lord gave me all the characters and the names and the plot and everything. And I mean, that book was hard. It was hard to write, and there were times that I would put it away and not look at it for weeks. And at one time, it was months because I didn't know. I didn't know what I was doing, and it made me nervous that the Lord had given me the story. I had this idea that, I was going to screw it up, which is just silly. But so I did. I put that book away and had to drag it back out, and
Yeah.
it's hard to get back into it once you put it away.
Yeah. Yeah, it really is. It really is. So tell us, so what helped you in that process to continue to move forward? We're going to talk a little bit about, Panster versus Plotter, because both Robin and I, of course, I've learned from Robin, so my process is probably a little bit like hers. But so Robin, tell me how did you what happened to the book? Did you finish it? Did you go on? What happened?
I finished the book. I really, it was, again, because the Lord had given me that book. Um, writing it, not writing it almost felt like disobedience. it was like, here, I've given you this gift. Don't hide it under a rock, right? We're supposed to do something with it. And so even though I felt it just felt beyond my skills, frankly. I just didn't think I had the chops to write it well. But my motto, my life motto is you can't edit a blank page. So I just kept going. I just forced myself to get back into it, and I slogged along, and it felt like slogging. It really did. It was hard to write, but then I just kept going. I think sometimes it's just a matter of going. I'm going to sit here and I'm going to stare at this document for 3 hours. So I might as well put some words on the page as long as I'm here. And that's one of my tricks is don't have word count goals when you're in places like that. Have time goals. So I'm going to spend X amount of time on this, no matter, even if I'm rewriting, if I'm doing whatever I have to do, I'm going to sit here for 3 hours. And it just kind of nudges you forward a little bit.
That's such good wisdom.
Hmm.
Because the hours a day, often, you come through that manuscript because, actually, Robin, I've been doing this series on getting unstuck for several weeks now. And, I was so stuck on my novel. I mean, the one I'm working on now, I was like, I can't believe I'm doing this series and I am so stuck. But last night, I was doing exactly what you said. I was going back over the manuscript every day. And I was like, oh, well, that was the midpoint. So that just means that I have half the book to finish. And it just was, I was like, oh, well, okay. So knowing that midpoint, so if I didn't know the midpoint, right, if I didn't know anything about structure, wow, I would have been really stuck.
It can be scary. Yeah, and having a plot that you can go back and look at. I mean, to me, that's the lifesaver. I get stuck usually because I have either veered from my plot and I can't figure out how to get back on it. The train is off the tracks.
Yeah.
Once it's off the tracks, it's really hard to get back on. Or I have realized that my plot that I had worked out so carefully at the beginning isn't going to work for some reason. So for some reason that wasn't a good idea. Usually it's because I plot it, but I don't research it. And then I research it and I'm like, oh, that doesn't work. I should really only write about mothers because that's all I know, motherhood and writing.
Actually, though, that is very encouraging to know because, I always plot out an idea. It might be fairly sketchy, but I have I use a structure. Usually it's a variety of save the cat kind of structure, but I always have that when I begin. But hey, when you start writing, you might have some more discoveries.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you may decide that, hey, wait a minute, I don't really know the villain at all.
Mm-hmm.
I know my protagonist, but I don't know my villain at all.
Right.
So
yeah, and you might discover that what you thought you knew about him wasn't right, or the motivation's not strong enough for one of your characters, or something like that. And then you find you have to go back and that's okay because that's part of the process. Those are the kinds of things that can get us stuck. I think when we go, oh, this isn't going to work, and then you just want to throw up your hands and go, forget it. Stupid book anyway. I don't know. I always get to that point in every book. I'm in it right now in the book I'm writing right now. Between 30 and 50,000 words where I'm like, this is the stupidest thing and no one is ever going to want to read it. This is going to be the book that ruins my career, that outs me as a fraud. I've been here enough. I've written enough books now that I'm like, just keep going. It's going to be fine. You can fix it later. It's going to be fine. Force myself to keep going.
Yeah. And, in such a sad way, that's very encouraging because
glad to
help. Because, may we just address it head on. The imposter syndrome is real.
Yes.
And it's just something that we're always hurtling over that, yes, we are not only writers, we are also storytellers. Yeah. And stories are fluid. they have a life, they grow, uh,
Exactly.
they don't always fit into a 4-point plan. I mean, they grow, they expand, and there are times that you think, I have no idea where this story is going.
That's right. And despite the plot, despite the very well ordered plot that you've written, you're like, I have no, like, I kind of know where I'm going to go at the end, but I don't have any idea how we're going to get there. The train is off the tracks.
Well, okay, so let's go here for a little bit since we can. I I've been cooking on something that you told me years ago. I don't, maybe just a couple years ago. You said that you at night you'd go to bed with a plot question, and then in the morning you'd wake up with the answer. Would
Yes.
you talk about that a little bit?
That hasn't been working as well lately. And it's sad. But really, when I go often, and like I say, lately, I'm so distracted by all the things lately that I can't focus on anything. But usually, if I have a plot issue, I'm thinking to myself, how am I going to get from this point to that point? And I don't know the answer. I go to bed, fall asleep churning on it, and by the time I wake up in the morning, an idea has come to me. And usually it's a pretty good one because your subconscious mind knows the story better than you do. And it churns on it. It'll search for those answers. And that does work. I need to practice what I preach sometimes because right now I'm thinking, oh yeah, that's a good idea. I should try that.
Well, I think for me the gist is okay. So I had to get over the fact that okay, first of all, that God was in the storytelling business. So give myself full permission to enjoy that He too is a storyteller, that it wasn't, because I wrote nonfiction for a long time and really rough. I had some friends who were like, you're writing fiction? Like,
How would you do
it's
that?
like, yes, I'm writing fiction. I love story.
Yeah.
God loves story. But here's the deal that I had to get over the fact that I was the creator, but not wholly. I mean, I was like a co creator.
Right.
And there was a part of a process that, as long as I agreed with it, would work.
Hmm.
But when I would start falling out of agreement and get into doubt and fear and, I can't do this,
Yeah.
it was harder.
Right. I
Does that
think
make sense?
Yeah, I think that's true, and I think that's always part of my issue that I have to have a level of faith when I'm writing, especially when I get to this point, like I said, I am right now, where I think no one's going to want to read this. That I have a
Yeah.
God, and He gives me stories, and He doesn't always download them to me like that one I was telling you about. But the seeds of these ideas, I totally believe they come from Him. And so if that's true, then why am I worried? Like what is there to worry about if I have a God who is walking with me through this process? So
Yeah.
that's just my own insecurity. That's not there's nothing real about those doubts. Not that the books are great or perfect or anything like that. Just that the Lord's not going to lead me to create something that's not worth creating.
Well, and I love the whole partnership aspect.
Yeah.
God's not going to write it for you.
Hmm.
You're not going to wake up in the morning and find it on your pillow.
But that'd be nice
Yeah, well, we could ask about that,
though.
but but in all of life, I see that as such a principle from the Lord that we are co-laborers, we're partners, and we have our part, He has our part, His part, which is helps with our part.
Yeah.
Anyway, it's kind of this seamless, lovely creation thing that I just think is marvelous. And really, Robin, I was thinking last night when I went to sleep about the Spirit of God hovering over the waters.
Yeah.
And it says it was brooding, the Holy Spirit was brooding over this unformed water.
Yeah.
And I thought, oh, that sounds like an author. That sounds like a novelist
Yeah.
brooding over these ideas.
Yeah. No, I think that's true. I think that's true. And if we trust that this God who loves us created us with this desire to tell stories and then gave us all the resources and put the amazing people in our lives like you who are so encouraging, then he must be doing it for a reason, and that reason must be good. So, just go forth and sit down every day and put your fingers on the keyboard and go. Even though it's hard. It's because
Good. So tell us how many, and I know, I know you finished a lot. I've read almost all your novels, but tell me how many that you've written.
I've published 18. I just published number 18. Now written more than that because there's a few of them that are yet to be published. I'd say I've probably written, oh yeah, well, I've definitely written up to 20, including that one that the Lord gave me that I slogged through, got done, and it's still unpublished. And I don't know why. I don't know why it's unpublished, and I don't know what his plan is, but I know it's good, so I'm not worried about it. It's just sitting, waiting for the right time and the right publisher.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love that. And Robin writes series, and I will say that I love series. Of course, Jonathan, I used to read with Jonathan, our youngest, and we love series. I mean, if it was a series, we would get it at the library, read every one of them.
Yeah.
And I love the way you craft your series because they're always, it's suspense, but there's a message in that suspense, and oh my gosh, yeah. So there's no like saying, oh well, I'll just quit at book one.
Well, I hope not.
No, I have to read them all.
That's the goal. I want you to read them all. I'm shameless.
I love that. I love it, and they're crafted well that way. And so, talk about series a little bit. How did you start writing series, or I mean, have you been in a writers community that encouraged that, or how did you pick that up?
Well, I think that it started. Honestly, the first book I published was called Finding Amanda, and
Yeah.
it was a standalone. It was a standalone
That's
novel.
my favorite.
Thank you. And then I had so many people say, I mean, is there going to be another book in the series? Like, are you going to write something else about those characters? And I was like, nope, that was it. I don't have anything. I don't have anything else. I ended up writing a prequel to that, like my hero and heroine's their little romance story. But it was amazing how many people wished that it was a series. So I think that kind of put the little bug in my ear that people want. But really, the first book that I wrote in my long series, it started as a standalone, and then I thought, no, I'm going to bring in more characters that I can use, down the road, just because they sell well, because people like them, because I am not like you are so good at setting Laurel, at creating these worlds. That's not my favorite. I was like, oh, I can put them all in the same place and use all the same places and restaurants, and I don't have to remember the new name for the coffee shop or.
Well, and they're all linked in some way, so that the titles are linked. But I love the way that it is truly a series or a sequence in stories and in your titles. There is that been kind of fun? Is that
Yeah, the first four really that I put all my Nutfield books into one series. So they have three different kinds of titles. So there's the Convenient Lies, which all are something lies, and then the second, which all start with the word beauty, and the second part, which is three books that are really just one big long story. The third section of that is the Legacy series, and I will never do that again because they're all called Legacy something, and the second word begins with R in all of them. It's so confusing. I'm like, I don't know. Book two, I think it was book two. I don't know. I actually paid for a blog tour and told her the wrong title and sent her the wrong book. So I paid for a blog tour on a book that had been out for like 6 months because I'm an idiot.
Well, I thought the Legacy series was pretty cool and that the titles were really good. So there you go. I had no idea. But it makes sense.
Yeah.
It makes sense.
So so somebody smarter than me has to deal with that stuff because my brain doesn't deal with those little details like words that all begin with rejected, reclaimed, redeemed, restored. Very confusing.
There you go.
That's just me.
Boom, boom, boom. So a little bit about your writing routine, and like how you fit that into your day? I know it's not all that you do, so I would love to know a little bit about that.
I start my day with writing. So my mother was always, my mother always said, do the worst first. And it's not that writing is the worst. I love it, but it's the hardest thing I do.
Yeah.
Creating new stories. I'm also an editor. Creating my own stories is much harder than picking apart somebody else's, frankly. And
Yeah.
so it's the hardest thing I do. And so I sit down at my desk in the morning. I usually check my emails, and then I dive in and I write. I do time goals, so I'll write for 3 hours a day, and that's my deal. So I don't worry about how many words I'm getting on the page. Sometimes I do a little because I'm on a deadline and I've got to make it move. But mostly, if I work 3 hours a day, 5 days a week, I'm going to get the words on the page I need to get. And then, by noon, I'm done with what to me is the hardest part of my day. I'm done, and then I spend the rest of my day on all the other aspects of my business.
I love that because for one thing, you're really fresh in the morning. I mean, after a cup of coffee, granted, but your mind is not already filled with all kinds of other stimulus and just thoughts and activities and so on.
Well, and I think that there's so many things that can steal our time. And the longer a day goes, the more likely one of those things is gonna get to you somehow. You're gonna get a call. We need to go here. I forgot a dark spot. Whatever. There's so many things that can pull you away. Well, it's 7 o'clock in the morning, 8 o'clock in the morning. There's not a whole lot pulling me away, and so it is
Yeah,
a consistent time. And I try very hard not to make appointments or like you and I are meeting at 1 because I'm done with my writing time.
right.
Otherwise, it just doesn't get. If I don't do it in the morning, I don't do it. I get distracted. I spend my time elsewhere.
That is really a wise tip. That it's really good. I think that some people can create around other people, but I've never been able to. I need to be alone. I need it to be quiet.
Yeah, and I'm
Yeah,
fortunate that that is also my most productive time of the day. I've always been a morning person. My brain wakes up firing on all cylinders, and I'm ready to go. Other
yeah.
people are like that. I know somebody who doesn't get started writing until 8 or 9 o'clock at night. I mean, I would not be a writer. If that were true for me, I would never have written the first one because I'm asleep by 10. So,
Well, you're an early riser
yeah,
too, and
yeah,
so when you're an early riser, yeah, you can't be a night owl either. It just
yes,
doesn't work. And I can do some editing late at night, and actually, there's some things I can figure out late at night as long as it's quiet and I'm alone. But then it kind of gets in the way of the morning because then I'm not quite as fresh in the morning. So yeah, it's a good tip. However that works for people, and I know we're all made differently, but to have that fresh time and to have that unhindered quiet time is just really golden as far as creativity.
I mean, one of the things about writers that is consistent is that writers write. And for people who want to be writers, if you want to be a writer, you have to put the butt in the chair and the fingers on the keyboard and write. So whether it's 8 o'clock in the morning or 3 o'clock in the afternoon, that time has to be sacrosanct. And if it's not, then you won't write. And if you don't write, then what's the point?
Yeah, and that kind of leads to my next question, Robin, as far as like you have a structure that you use and you basically outline according to that structure, right?
I do.
Tell me about how knowing structure helps you stay unstuck, or maybe it's knowing your plot. I don't know how to ask you that, but you know what I mean.
I do know what you mean. So I really feel like the structure is it's like the 2x4s of your building. And so once you've got those 2x4s up, it's just not, you're just filling in the blanks. You're putting up the walls and putting in the doors, but you know that there's going to be a wall here, there's going to be a door here. So for me, I can look and go, like, for instance, right now I'm at about 35,000 words. So I'm in the middle, I'm about 25 really into the act two. And I
Right.
know in another 10,000 words, I need to be at the midpoint, really fewer than that. So I'm thinking, okay, I've got like two or three scenes, and then I have to have my midpoint, and then I know this and this. And so knowing the structure, it partially, it's kind of like you said, oh, I'm at the midpoint. Okay, good. And then it just kind of gives you this, I'm on the downward slope now. I can do this. So that's part of it, I think, just knowing, okay, I'm clever, I'm going step by step by step along my plot. So it's just doesn't feel as overwhelming. It's just looking at a blank page and thinking I need to come up with 85,000 words. Um, but also it's that kind of what room is next. I put this in now. I must go here now. We need to have some of this because I know what I need in my plot to make my plot work. Does that kind of answer the question?
That that it does for me because I think that even even people who say I'm just a total pantser, I think that on the inside they must know the way a story is formed
Right.
innately in some way because that structure helps you so much fit, like you said, fill in the blanks with with the two by fours. It just helps you say, oh, okay, this is where we need to go next. And then you can develop, like you said, you can develop scenes, which I wanted to show Robin this. So Robin taught about scenes. Well, I ended up having to volunteer at a book festival, and so I got the notes. So I carry them around with me about building a good scene. But it really helps to build a good scene if you know what kind of scene that you need.
Right.
Do you need an inciting action at the very beginning? Something has to happen.
Yes.
Do you need a midpoint where everything shifts?
Yeah.
Boom.
Yeah.
And or are you ready for your major confrontation?
Right.
And then you can craft those seeds and have a good time with them.
I think so. I think that's true. And we, you and I have some friends who are seat the pants writers, and I'm power to them. I will say, I know very few people who have gone from being plotters to being seat the pants writers. The people who are generally shifting toward plot, and I think part of the reason is you were just talking about building great scenes. You can build wonderful scenes that are unnecessary to your plot because nothing happens in them. And I think
Yeah,
some people spend a lot of time writing scenes that later they go, I don't need that scene. I don't have that kind of time to waste in my life.
that is
Right.
so true. And then you're like, but I love this scene.
It's so hard
I'll
to
make it
get,
work.
and then you get these books with all these scenes. You're like, lovely writing. I wouldn't publish it, but it's really good.
And that leads to the next point that I had to just get over that the fact so we can write beautifully, but writing beautifully is not being a storyteller. And, learning the elements of storytelling are very structural. I mean, there's so much creativity in it and so much artistry, but basically, hey, I heard you say act two. So, act one, act two, act three, that there is a format for a good story and how it works. Has it helped, Robin? Is it generally easier for you to get stories and get them moving now that you have more experience? Or tell us about that.
I miss the days when my books started with a seed of an idea. And I thought, oh, what kind of book could that be? And then I had the freedom to let it simmer and contemplate it. And I don't have that freedom anymore. I publish
Yeah.
faster than that. And I'm writing throughout 3 or 4 books a year. And it's not just that. My brain just doesn't work that way anymore. It's not just it's not a purely creative process anymore. And in a lot of ways, all the plotting has hindered that. And not in a bad way, but just that I don't just let my brain go just willy-nilly wherever it wants to go. My first book was 300,000 words and it was terrible, but I sure enjoyed writing it. It was really fun to write. Like, I knew those people. That book will never be published because I couldn't finish their story. It happened. It might have only happened in my head, but that's how it happened. And I loved that. I loved the depth that I had when I was just kind of letting it all come together in its own beautiful way. Um, but so so good stories are easier to write with the plotting. It's not necessarily as much fun to plot those. Well, I wasn't plotting the other ones. I was just figuring them out as it went along. So in that respect, yes, it has gotten a little bit easier. It becomes a little instinctive where you go, oh, I have to have something happen here. This is the kind of character that would work in this spot. It becomes kind of instinctive, um, which which is so the plots are better, even though they might not feel as much fun to come up with as those sort of random willy nilly plots that it's just
I think that's encouraging because it kind of eliminates that old mentality that, the muse just kind of descends.
yeah
And to a certain extent, that's kind of cool. I
yeah
mean, we've all experienced the discoveries of, unexpected discoveries about our stories, but it's not real reliable when you're trying to get a book done.
that's right. And this is a job. I mean, it's a job. And so, I mean, I people who are like tax accountants can't go, oh, the muse just wasn't with me today. They're feeling the numbers. Yeah, they got to get in and do the work. And that's kind of how I look at it. Like, this is what I do for a living. So I don't get to rely. My muse has to be my servant, not the other way around.
I think that's very key
Yeah.
to moving forward and succeeding in a career as being a novelist is I'm in charge of the muse. Thank
Yeah.
you very much.
Yeah. Join me when you can, but when you can't, I'll be here working. And the thing is that I don't know when every day to me it's like the invitation to the muses I'm writing. So join me. If you wait until your little muse comes, you might be waiting for a long time. But if you start writing, I don't know. I think a muse wants to get involved. Like, what are you doing? It's tapping on your shoulder. What are you doing?
I think that a muse likes a moving target.
Yeah.
Yeah, that it's just easier to go ahead and get it on the page and wait for that burst of creativity. It does come, and it is lovely when it comes.
Yeah.
But if you wait for it, it's like, yeah, it's more conducive to a moving target or a moving hand or a butt in the chair.
That's right. That's right. I'll tell you this, the books that are the best books, in my opinion, that I've written, and the books that I get the best compliments on are not books that I felt like just poured forth in creative, beauty. They're the books that I sat here at 30,000 words going, this is the worst book I've ever written. I mean, they're the books because it's work. And so, you know, you just do it and then you fix it, what's broken, and then people love it. And you're like, I don't know, I didn't see it. But the better books, the ones that feel good are not necessarily as good as the ones that you make good.
Yeah. I, I think that's really helpful, Robin. And, that's been my goal at Write Your Heart Out is to diffuse um, the idea that magic has to happen.
Yeah,
That, to demystify some of these myths about writing a novel
right.
or just being a creative person, but specifically writing a novel,
Yeah,
that we learn to do what we want to do.
right,
And we get better because we're learning and we're open to learning.
right.
And I love your heart for learning because I've been around you enough to watch you, and in so many ways, like you learn from it. They don't have to be experts.
Right.
You learn from all kinds of people around you, and I've learned that just by watching you. And because there's always something that if we keep a humble heart, that we can say, okay, I'm not doing that very well right now, but I will be doing that very well soon.
Right. I love that. That's true. That's true. And we can, I do. I mean, we learn from each other. Like you say, you're so good at so many things that I'm not good at. And I love listening to you talk about story. And, you and I have some mutual friends, and they all have some amazing things to offer about story. And I learn all the time when we get together. So I mean, I think the idea that we've ever arrived is ridiculous. And it's writing a great book is not pixie dust and magic. It's work. It's button share and words on page and studying and praying and rereading and editing, and it's work.
Yeah.
But
And
it's work anybody with a modicum of talent can do.
well, and if you want to write, right. I mean, you can learn. It's okay. And I think though this kind of leads us to our last point, Robin, is about writers community and
Mhm.
getting okay, so WriterCon 2021 is on the books. It's going to be ready for I think early bird starts um I think the 1st of May. But anyway, it's at the Skirvin again. It's Labor
Yes,
Day weekend. We want all of you all to join us. It's a fabulous conference.
it is.
You get an opportunity not only to meet other writers, but you get really good instruction. Robin teaches often. Plus that, you get to meet professionals. You get to meet acquisition editors. You find out a little bit about the workings of traditional publishing
Mhm.
as well as independent or self-publishing.
Right.
So it's just a huge world, and to come into that community is really it's nothing but an advantage. Would you like to say anything about that?
You know what? And the thing about it is, WriterCon, I love. I love WriterCon. Great community, just great people. You and all the people who run it are just a blessing to the people who come, and I love it. To me, that is big writer conferences like that are a must in a career. You've got to do that. But equally important is the small community of writers that you gather around you, whether you are physically close to them or whether they're people that you meet online. I would not still be writing if not for those people in my life, for people who came alongside me and said, "Yes, you are a good writer," even when no professional agreed with that assessment. Nobody cared to read what I was writing. People who said this is what you're doing wrong, people who were willing to read and write. I mean, I would have given up years ago because it's hard. That's why we're like what you're doing is so important because you're not just encouraging, but you're teaching. You're helping people to understand the ins and outs of this really complex business and skill. Frankly, it's writing's not easy. It's worth it. And
Yeah.
it's great in a million ways, but it's not easy.
Well, thank you for that, Robin. And I totally agree. I don't. I think it's the final bow on the package because it's such a solitary career that unless you are active about, and which of course now with being online, there's so many ways you can get it connected with writers, and the writers roundtable. We have, writers, emerging writers from all over the country, and we have three who are international. So it's just,
Oh,
yeah, it's so much fun. It is so much fun. But writers are hungry to get connected in a community, however that works. Because you're right, you need more than encouragement. You do need encouragement,
mhm.
but you gotta have instruction. You have to have craft.
Yeah,
So it's just a lovely kind of balance that it's gonna pay off with the right investment of time.
I agree. And I love what you do, Laurel, because you have always made it such a part of your life to to come alongside people and to just help them along the next step. And I know the Lord blesses that. I know that blesses his heart and the Lord blesses it. And I think a lesson for all of us to just, we're so focused on what's up in front of us, what's here, and sometimes we need to turn back and take hands and say, "Let's go together," And
Oh,
I think we can forget. I think that you do a really good job of doing
oh, thank you. I love that. I love that. Looking around ourselves because our career is such an insular kind of career. And oh my gosh, but there's no greater joy than finding writers and think. I remember, Robin, when my first writers conference, I was like, oh my gosh, these people think like I do. This is wild.
It's a crazy thought. I thought I was the only one. I thought I was nuts. There's either we're all
Exactly.
nuts together, or it's a whole different kind of normal.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We just thought the Lord had broken the mold, It's like, okay, they're a little odd, but
Oh, yeah, that's hilarious. That's true. That's what we all think. We're all weird together.
and we are special. We're,
That's true.
we're special. Well, it's been such a joy to talk with you, Robin. Is there anything else you'd like to say or add?
No, nope. It was really fun to talk to you. It always is a joy to talk to you. So I'm going to get WriterCon on my schedule here so I don't forget.
Yeah. Well, Robin has moved to Texas land, and so I just am so grateful we can stay connected, Robin. And thank you for your wisdom today. I just it's really valuable, and that's one thing that as you're persevering with this career, you don't realize that you're getting tips that are going to help other people. At some point someone's going to ask you what works for you, and when you say, well, this works. So when Robin has over 20 novels published, and other many others written and many edited, listen, what a joy and what a treasure to get to talk to you. So thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you having me on. It's been fun.
You bet. And Robin will drop any link that she wants to in her comments section. And our Facebook Live is actually on Laurel A. Thomas, my author page. So Robin and I will share that. It's also on YouTube. So let us know if you have questions. We would love to hear from you. So thank you, Robin.
Thank you. It's been fun.
All right. Have a great day.
You too.